Hello, I want to talk to you today about failure. Not the kind you read about in business books, the sanitized version where everything turns out fine in the end. I want to talk about real failure, the kind that destroys you, the kind that makes you question everything you've ever believed about yourself. It was May 1985. I was 30 years old. I had just been removed from all operational duties at Apple Computer, the company I started in my parents' garage 9 years earlier with Steve Wozniak. The company that bore my name, the company that was my entire identity, had just told me I was no longer needed. Let me be very specific about what happened because the details matter. John Sculley, the CEO I had personally recruited from Pepsi-Cola just 2 years before, had gone to the board of directors. Mike Markula, our chairman and early investor, sided with him. The board voted. I lost. They didn't fire me outright. That would have been cleaner, honestly. Instead, they stripped me of all responsibilities. I was kicked upstairs to a meaningless position they called chairman of the board, a title with no power, no team, no projects. I had an office, but nothing to do in it. I would come in and wander the halls of the company I built, watching other people work on products I should have been creating. Development, 3 to 7. You know what the hardest part was? The public humiliation. This wasn't a quiet removal. This was front page news in every business publication. The Wall Street Journal, Business Week, Fortune magazine, they all covered it. Steve Jobs ousted from Apple, the headline screamed. My face was everywhere and the story was always the same. The founder had failed. The visionary had become a liability. The genius turned out to be impossible to work with. And they weren't entirely wrong. That's what hurt the most. I had been difficult. I had pushed people too hard. I had been ruthless in my pursuit of perfection. When Mike Murray, one of our marketing directors, presented a campaign I thought was mediocre, I told him it was shit, not in private, in front of his entire team. When engineers showed me circuit boards that were technically functional but aesthetically ugly, I made them redesign them, even though no customer would ever see inside the machine. Real artists sign their work, I told them, but to them it just seemed like tyranny. I remember walking through Cupertino that summer, and people would recognize me. Some would look away, embarrassed. Others would approach with that pitying expression. You know the one, that look that says, I heard what happened to you, and I'm so sorry. I hated that look. I hated what I had become. A cautionary tale, a business school case study in founder failure. My relationship with John Sculley had completely deteriorated. We had been friends once. I had pursued him relentlessly, finally convincing him to leave Pepsi with that famous line, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world? He came. We were going to do great things together, but within 2 years, we couldn't be in the same room without arguing. We disagreed about everything, product strategy, company culture, where Apple should be heading. I thought he didn't understand technology. He thought I didn't understand business. We were both probably right. By September 1985, I couldn't take it anymore. I resigned from Apple. I sold all but one share of my Apple stock. I kept that single share so I could still receive the annual report and know what was happening to my company. With the money from selling my stock, about $100 million, I started over. I founded a new computer company. I called it Next. The idea was to build computers for education, machines that would be so advanced, so powerful, so beautiful that they would revolutionize how students learned. I recruited some of the best engineers from Apple. 5 of them resigned to join me, which made Apple so angry they sued us. I found factory space in Redwood City. I met with Paul Rand, the legendary graphic designer, and paid him $100,000 to create our logo. A single meeting, one fee. One perfect cube tilted at 28 degrees. But Next struggled. The computers we were building were too expensive. The Next computer, when it finally launched in 1988, cost $6,500, later raised to $10,000. Educational institutions couldn't afford it. The technology was incredible. A 25 megahertz processor, 8 megabytes of RAM, a magneto-optical disk drive, and object-oriented operating system. Tim Berners-Lee would later use a Next computer to create the World Wide Web at CERN. But incredible technology doesn't matter if nobody can buy it. We sold only 50,000 units in the first few years. For comparison, Apple was selling millions of Macintoshes. The press that had once celebrated me now mocked me. Jobs' next computer is a flop, read one headline. Another, the wilderness years of Steve Jobs. I had gone from wunderkind to has-been in 5 years. Meanwhile, I had made another big bet. In 1986, I bought a little computer graphics division from George Lucas for $10 million. Lucas was going through a divorce and needed cash. The division had about 40 employees and made high-end graphics computers and software. I named the new company Pixar. Pixar was hemorrhaging money. We were burning through $1 million a month. The hardware wasn't selling. So we pivoted to software, creating rendering software for other animation studios. That didn't work either. Then we started making short animated films to demonstrate what our software could do, just demos, nothing more. But those demos started winning awards. A short film called Tin Toy won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film in 1988. I kept investing. $10 million became $20 million. $20 million became $30 million. Eventually, I invested over $50 million of my own money into Pixar, nearly everything I had. My friends thought I was insane. My advisors told me to shut it down. Every rational business analysis said Pixar would never be profitable. But something was happening during those years in the wilderness, something I couldn't see at the time. I was learning. At Next, we were building the most advanced operating system anyone had ever created. It was object-oriented. It had a display PostScript engine. It had a Unix foundation. We were years ahead of everyone else. At Pixar, we were figuring out how to tell stories through computer animation, building the tools and the expertise that nobody else in the world had. In 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the first fully computer-animated feature film. It made $373 million at the box office. We took the company public a week later, and in one day, my 80% stake in Pixar was worth $1.2 billion. That failure, that little graphics division I'd kept funding when everyone told me to quit, had just made me a billionaire. And then, in December 1996, something remarkable happened. Apple was dying. The company had lost its way. They needed a new operating system, and they couldn't build one themselves. So they bought Next, that failed computer company I'd started in my garage 11 years earlier, for $429 million, and I returned to Apple. Within a year, I was running Apple again. We streamlined the product line. We created the iMac, then the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad. Apple became the most valuable company in the world. None of that would have happened without those years of failure. Here's what I learned in 1985 when I lost everything. Being fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love, and that is as true for your work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. During those years, I also learned something else. Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. So here's what I want to leave you with. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Thank you.